It binds generations. It shapes cultures. It exists in our rituals, in our joy, in our sadness. It gives us a shared purpose. It's the thing that poets, philosophers, scientists, and mystics have been trying to understand throughout history. Today, we're talking about love. In a world driven by individualism, consumerism, and algorithms, what is true love today? In this episode of Doha Debates, we're joined by experts, global thinkers, each with their own take on this issue.
True love is sacrifice.
Human love, human relationships are really about reconnecting and finding that meeting of minds.
True love is first love of God, and then love of what is good and virtuous, and love of one's fellow man.
Their perspectives will be explored and questioned in a majlis-style debate, grounded in understanding and a search for truth. Now, watching over all of this will be a group of university students and recent graduates. They come from different universities in Qatar Foundation's Education City and beyond, and have been preparing for this debate.
There's no such thing as love. It's just something we made up.
Sometimes it's just loving this person when you don't want to show love.
It's the recognition that you could be yourself with another person.
Is it really love or it's now stupidity?
It is beyond understanding. It is tedious to try to understand it, and yet it is so fulfilling.
You need to feel it, you need to express it.
Now, after our guests finish their debate, the students will reflect and deliberate before returning with their own insights, ready to challenge, agree, or offer entirely new perspectives. I'm Imran Garda, and this is Doha Debates. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. It's good to have you here on Doha Debates. Now, you know there are a lot of shows out there talking about love that are essentially about relationships. This is not one of them, okay? We're going bigger, we're going broader, and we're cutting to the very, very heart of it. And that's why I want to start with you, Anna. What does true love mean to you?
From a biological perspective, true love is a bond that is underpinned by a set of neurochemistry, which motivates us and rewards us for starting what we call our survival critical relationships. So those that are going to help us survive and pass our genes down the generations. But true love is defined by a concept called biobehavioral synchrony, which is when all the mechanisms in your body match the person you're in love with. And you are so closely bonded through all those mechanisms, physiological, behavioral, neural, that you practically become one organism with one operating system.
That's right. If we're conditioned in such a fine-tuned way for all of this, why are we so terrible at it?
Because we all have individual experiences of love. So there are so many variables that come into making your experience of love. Some of them are biological, so they're things like your genetics.
Oh my God, not the genetics.
These guys really love genetics, you know?
Your upbringing, your physiology, your neural structure. And then there's the cultural dimension, so how you were brought up, your religion, your politics, the media you've watched. All these different things come together to make your experience. I'm afraid some people are genetically predisposed to be better at it than others.
Okay, so Anna's talking about something that's sort of coming from within, right? Sharif, is this something that's evolutionary conditioning, evolutionary impulse, or is it something from up above?
From an Islamic perspective, certainly we would see love as something that is implanted in human beings by God, that our capacity to love, whether to love God, to love each other, to love things, you know, love can be directed towards different persons, different objects, different also values and beliefs. We would say it's fitri, it is part of our fitra, part of our inborn nature as created by God.
It's like if God created man, he also created man as like whatever biological mechanism. is required to love.
For me as a medical student, I understand that love is deeply biological. I understand that with almost every interaction with a human being, you have different types of neurochemicals that are being released within your brain and causing you to feel certain types of way.
That fitra, that innate thing that's seated inside. When Anna said that genetic basis, people start off at different levels. Talk to me a bit more about that. What do you think of that?
So there's a hadith or a saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he says, every child is born on the fitra. كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. And this has been understood that every child is born with kind of an innate disposition, primarily to recognize the existence and the oneness of God and the fact that we are creatures of a creator. And among what is in the fitra is precisely this inborn love that we have for that which is good, that which benefits us. So there are things that we kind of love for their own sake and things that we love because of the benefits they bring us. And the idea to form, primarily like romantic partnerships, that's an aspect of love. But love, I think, is much broader than that.
I agree with every single thing Dr. Sharif was saying. I want to have a cup of coffee with this guy. I think we'd get along. Although he's coming in from a religious perspective, I find him extremely tolerant of different kinds of love and how love can manifest differently in people's lives. And your experience of love could be different. I agree with everything he's saying.
Let me go back to the very genesis. What is true love to you?
What is true love to me personally is something that's instinctive, that comes from within, that's biological, but at the same time, technology as part of a factor in our environment has an impact on the way that we perceive love and we seek love.
What do you mean by that?
It shapes our perceptions of who we are, it shapes our perceptions of who we want to be, and our expectations. It's a medium in which we facilitate our interactions, human-to-human interactions, may even come in contact with someone that we might fall in love with.
Anna, jump in.
I just want to pick up on something Sharif said. As an anthropologist, what interests me is the entire spectrum of love. So what I was talking about isn't just romantic love. It's any love that occurs between what we would call sentient beings. And so that could be a god, that could be a dog, and it can also be that wide range of spectrum that we have.
That's an interesting perspective.
Point of view. In fact, there's no hierarchy of love. I think particularly in the West, we have a bit of an obsession with romantic love, but there is actually no hierarchy with romantic love at the top, which is the best one to get. Actually, they all have the similar benefits.
I would disagree. I believe there is a clear hierarchy. And I believe
she's saying that we need all types of love. That's what she's saying. We shouldn't have a hierarchy.
Whether it be a spiritual love, a religious love, a love for your family, your friends, your community, whatever it might be. We are so lucky as humans to be able to love in many, many different ways.
Do you think there's a hierarchy in Islam, Sharif?
The highest love should be love for God, and then love for the Prophet, peace be upon him. And then after that, love for the good, the true, the virtuous, so non-sentient beings. In the Quran, for example, a verse that brings this, it says, إِن كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ. And it goes on, maybe I won't quote the whole thing in Arabic because it's long, but it says, if your parents, your children, your brethren, your spouses, your kin, and wealth which you have acquired, and commerce which you fear may slacken, and dwellings in which you take delight. Okay, all of these things are things which we naturally love, and it's not actually, the verse is not actually criticizing our love of those things, it's natural. I mean, what's more natural than to love your parents, your children, your siblings, your larger kin group or tribe, for example, and then, wealth, your commerce, dwellings in which you delight. But if all of these things are more beloved to you than God and his messenger and struggling in the way of God, then wait until God brings forth his command, and God does not guide those who are iniquitous. So it kind of, it doesn't blame these loves, but it says that there should be a hierarchy and that the love of God and God's messenger should be first, and then these things come afterwards.
Regarding the hierarchy that Dr. Sharif brought and Hamad brought, yes, I completely honestly agree with them. They are amazing, and this is something that we should actually aspire to work on. But it's just simply not realistic in today's world.
Ayca, you want to come in?
Well, I'm thinking really about something Anna said, love is sentient, but then Sharif mentioned that we could love things that are also non-sentient, and it makes me think about artificial intelligence. There's been so much debate about whether we are coming to a place, and maybe we are already there, where AI might have feelings in the shape of companions.
The greatest thing that we can achieve in AI is consciousness.
What?
That's the greatest thing we can achieve.
I think with an absence of God, there is an absence of true love.
And they are shaping their expectations. So can someone love AI?
Up against millions of years of evolution, can they replicate love?
No. I think there are 2 points to be made. First of all, I would say sometimes the word love itself is inadequate, the English word love. So we talk about, I don't know, yes, love of landscape, love of, yes, a piece of music. As a scientist, I wouldn't define that as love. There are certain parameters that we see in the brain and we see in behaviour and in psychology which define what love is from that point of view. And it's certain activations in the brain, it's the release of certain neurochemicals, it's the presence of attachment relationships, and it's a set of certain behaviours.
She is just biology. I think it's a very reductionist view, it's a very simplistic view. Takes away the soul out of love by calling it something as like a stimuli response reaction.
To me, it's completely justified because this is something that includes science. It includes scientific reactions, chemical reactions, biological reactions within our body, and neurological reactions as well.
The brain is very good at spotting whether it's interacting with something that is sentient or not, even if you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have major worries about AI companion robots that build relationships with you. They have a place. I'm not saying they do not have a place, but if we could say whether or not that is a loving relationship, at the moment, definitely not. And as somebody who has studied the brain, and as you say, you know, our brains in relation to love are incredibly ancient. The idea that you can engineer that you can engineer empathy, that you can engineer this concept of biobehavioral synchrony, which is the coming together of two people or two beings as one organism, I find very difficult to agree would happen.
No, that's true though. That's true. You don't get the same biological like benefits, you know.
We put people in a scanner. We don't tell them whether they're talking to a robot or they're talking to a human. When they talk to a human, they don't know it. We see so much activity in the prefrontal cortex, where social cognition sits. They talk to AI, there is nothing. Your brain knows. Your brain can detect it, whether you know or not.
So the AI can be a sort of comfort cushion?
It's a comfort cushion, but it must not replace.
Are you as pessimistic about that, Ayca?
Intelligence is bigger than artificial intelligence, and love cannot be artificially created. It can, but what it will be at best is not a very intelligent love.
Sharif, I want to ask you, can love ever be conditional? Or is it not love if it's conditional?
If we take the hierarchy that, you know, love of God, for example, is at the highest level, then that should be unconditional because, you know, what would it mean to put a condition on that? You know, what would a condition look like that I will only, for example, love God under certain conditions? So I would say, yeah, it should be unconditional.
No, unconditional love to God exists.
No.
No, what do you mean?
No.
Sundos.
I mean, come on, we're humans. There is no such thing as unconditional.
It doesn't.
There is still some
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But
But
do
to
you
God,
truly love
God is
God
an
if they're
exception,
going to be
right? Like God is
conditions?
unconditional
A
because
mother
He
loves
created you.
unconditionally.
So you will love Him no
Yes.
matter what, and He will love you no matter
I have an
what.
argument against that. Our love for God isn't entirely unconditional because I think if God didn't love us back, if we didn't know that God loves us back, it would kind of be like Stockholm Syndrome.
Sometimes I feel like it is conditional, and sometimes I feel like it should not be conditional, and I don't think it is conditional. When I help people, they can die tomorrow, and I would still, you know, help them today.
And even in our normal human interactions with each other, we often talk particularly about love between, you know, parents and children. That should also be, you know, in general, we expect parental love for a child to be unconditional, right? No matter what the child does, one should love that child. Even if you disapprove, you know, you could be upset with them, you could disapprove.
Anna, with the wiring, is the sort of parent-child dynamic, I know you've written a lot about fatherhood as well,
Yes.
so I'm not going to just say mother and child, I'm going to say, you know, mother and father and child. Is there a hierarchy when we look at the science where that is for sure unconditional and the others, well, it depends on who you ask and how and why?
Yeah.
Tell me about the science of this.
I've studied thousands of relationships. Unfortunately, not all love is unconditional. But in the child-parent relationship, obviously what we have here is we have, from an evolutionary point of view, genes in the game. So as far as evolution is concerned, as a parent, your sole point of being on Earth is to raise your children help them survive so that they themselves can reproduce. So that is where the idea of unconditional parental love comes from. And it certainly is, when I speak to someone, I always say to people, what is your most powerful love? And if we are speaking to people with children, they will invariably, though there is an exception, say, my children. What's interesting is it's very difficult to measure on a scanner screen, for example, how powerful someone's love is. Because intensity, for example, of brain activation doesn't necessarily represent how powerful some love is. And so this is where science kind of finds it difficult to completely pinpoint that particular hierarchy of power, because actually how I experience love and how you experience love are probably different. And I will not understand how you feel when you're in love. And science will probably never touch that, which in one sense I think is wonderful. That's the magical bit of love. And even as a scientist, I believe in the magical bit of love.
When you asked about unconditional love, I was talking about sort of what is the ideal or what should be the case, right? But of course, you know, although that is paradigmatically the case, right? It could be also, you know, in certain cases, you have terrible parents, terrible children, you know, where there is a lack of love or very conditional love. I mean, the world is an imperfect place.
I'm reminded of the Romanian orphanage study because, you know, Anna said there's certain limitations about our understanding of these sort of bonds, right? And the Romanian orphanage study, if I can briefly sort of paraphrase it, it was published in the Lancet. You had these kids sort of, you know, post Soviet Romania, post-communism Romania in the early 1990s were adopted into stable, loving British families, UK families. But they were kids who grew up in the 80s and early 90s in a system of severe neglect. And they were not hugged by the nurses in the orphanage. And no matter what was thrown at them, and Anna, you're aware of the study, so if I get any of it wrong, please jump in. No matter what was thrown at them in terms of love, affection, giving them a stable household, giving them a platform in life, they had severe issues in life, severe difficulties, behavioral issues, aggression, and so on and so forth. And I mean, Gabor Mate talks about it. He says, you know, they didn't have people hugging them as babies. That was it. And so we don't quite know what it is, and we can talk about the hormones and the neurochemicals and so on and so forth, right? And this is not their biological mother as well, but compared to other orphans, they did far worse off. So when I tell that to you, Ayca, and you think of your worries about AI coming in as well, does it terrify you even more that we just don't understand what we're playing with?
It has huge potential. But at the same time, the general sense is this is great. I don't agree with that. I think AI is a special kind of technology that has its biases, that is not always accurate. And on the example, on the study that you shared, love is an instrument for socializing. It's one of our most fundamental ways to socialize, and that's how we form a family. It's the most sort of like the fundamental core unit. If we delegate that, if we delegate divine love to a chatbot.
I'm sorry, what?
And there's examples of that. Now they're given advices, religious advices. I don't know what you think about that. If we delegate parental love, if we delegate friendship, romantic love, what we're actually giving out is that opportunity to have that hug.
Yes.
To have that human-to-human connection. And love is mutual. And when I say mutual, I am not really talking about the conditional part, but I'm talking really about when it activates empathy. Empathy is a very high-level feeling.
If it's artificial, it's not real. It's imaginary. So if you are having a relationship, quote unquote, with a machine, then you are only imagining, it's reproducing in your mind, you know, the impression of having a relationship, but it's not a real relationship.
I think with the concept of algorithms and AI, it was interesting to be brought into love. Never heard or talked about it in class before.
And like I just said, it's not mutual. And I think it's so instinctive to all of us that to be in a relationship, I mean, the word relationship means, you know, like relation, we do this, like it's a relationship between two sides. And a machine that's only kind of stimulating things in your brain is not really apt to be in a mutual relationship. It can't be in a relationship.
We've been speaking for a long time about love, you know. Is it sort of culturally contingent? And I know, Sharif, when we ask about the word love in Arabic, there's multiple manifestations of it as well.
He better start talking about love in Arabic, man. There's so much to talk about, honestly.
Sort of, there's a root word, and you can sort of create a mind map out of it with multiple ways. Is our language limiting?
Yeah.
With English, we're stuck with this one word, and it's a little bit subjective, isn't it?
It's incredibly limiting, and I think that's where we struggle with actually, in the English language, understanding what love is a little bit. Because yes, we have one word, and we will use it for saying, I love pizza, I love God, I love my children.
And Sharif, as a professor of the Arabic language itself, when you say love, how do you translate that into Arabic?
The most common word would be hub or mahabba, so that root hababa, and that actually occurs in the Quran 95 times, in the Quran, mostly in the verbal form, to love, ahabba yuhibbu. But you also have the root wed, wadda yawaddu, in the words wood and mawadda, which is kind of like affection or loving kindness. And it's interesting that in the Quran, so God says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. So among his signs, God's signs, is that he created from amongst you mates, spouses, for you to find rest in. And he created between you mawadda and rahma, loving kindness and mercy. So it's interesting that the relationship is not actually described as ishq, which would be the word used for kind of like passionate love, like this romantic love. And that's used in poetry, but that's not what the term used in the Quran. It says he placed between you mawadda and rahma, so loving kindness or affection and mercy. Because that kind of passionate love, the kind of Hollywood love, that is present at the beginning of the relationship. It doesn't last. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think part of the crisis of modern marriage is that people are looking for these quote unquote love marriages. Of course, love should be there, but what kind of love? If it's just based on that very hot kind of Hollywood passionate ishq, if that's the only thing you have going into it, it's not going to last. Because once that feeling subsides, there's nothing really there to catch, the hole that's left, and it just falls apart.
Romantic love is a modern notion. It's a social construct. It kind of arose in sort of the Romantic period in sort of the 1700s, in England among the Romantic poets. And actually, it's not really been a very helpful concept, because romantic love is all about, as you know, passion and finding the one and, having to overcome hurdles. But unfortunately, it's the one that the West has plumped for. The idea of romantic love in non-Western concepts doesn't even exist in many cultures.
That's not true.
That's not true.
What the hell?
Yo, what is this? What?
Ma'am.
Have you ever picked up Ghalib? Like, have you ever picked up any Urdu poet? Read that and tell me that that's not passionate love. You know what I mean?
And I'm curious to hear from the young people what they think about this. This is but 1/3 of this program. There'll be much more to come. Thanks so much. I'm reminded of that Meister Eckhart quote where he says, theologians of the world may differ, but the mystics all speak the same language. And in a way, we've had a fascinating discussion. People from, you're all mystics here in this discussion. Thanks so much. This is one part of it. Okay. I'm going to speak to the students in a bit, and we'll come back. So throughout this debate, our panel of students and recent graduates has been carefully listening to all your ideas and your arguments. Next up, I'm going to go next door. I'm going to join them as they'll reflect and deliberate on what they've just heard. And then after their discussion, they'll return to share their own perspectives along with potential questions, potential challenges. Hi, guys. It's time to talk about love with all of you. Do you think we missed anything in that discussion?
Yeah, absolutely did.
Oh, we did.
Yes.
Tell me what we missed.
So I think we missed two key facets about love in the debate. Like, firstly, the very nature of how and what love is ultimately it's a way for a being to understand another being, right? Secondly, we talked a lot about how biological processes are about how, like understanding one another, how these chemical neurons fire, about divine love and how it relates to God, right? But what we missed here was that just because it's not with a certain person doesn't mean love cannot be self-transformational.
Okay, anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, I completely disagree.
Okay, a lot of people. Let's start with Sundus.
I think that automation can help people in terms of like simulation. I think it can help you maybe build up some skills. I think it can be useful for people with neurodivergent tendencies to, as we use in therapies. I don't think beyond that you can actually receive some form of actual love in return, but maybe that person is happy with that.
I get that. I don't disagree with your point. I just don't think it should be normalized. It's gonna make a lot of people just kind of forget what real love is. It feels like you're missing something and you're trying to find it in the wrong means. Like it should not be relied on. It should not be normalized. It's a bit concerning in terms of lifestyle. So I feel like we need to tread that very carefully.
If I can push back on that, I just want to say, who are we to say how people should love and who to love? I understand that maybe there's healthier ways, and maybe we can like tell about it, discuss it, and have a conversation with them, right? But if they fall in love with a tree, who are you to tell them you are wrong for loving a tree?
I'm not telling you, I'm telling my son,
if you're saying let's not normalize it, then you're implying that everybody should follow this logic that you have.
I mean, look, I don't think it's a healthy lifestyle. That's just what I think, you know?
Okay, so let's go. Hamid, come in.
Yeah, so I think your perspective about this live and let live, let everyone love how they want to love is actually a ridiculous point of view, really. This is not going to produce a community with families that are family units with children, etc., with strong bonds between the community. I think that we have to understand that not all love is created equal. There is a hierarchy of love as well. I think that if you were to go and say, this person can love his car and love his this in the same way that someone loves their family, I think, no. This is someone creating a parasocial relationship, a one-sided relationship.
What she's saying is that who are we to get involved?
I think we are.
But there's a risk
as
to
people
that.
who want the betterment of society at large, as well as the best for others. I think it is our duty to get involved.
Okay, so Carl and then Hussein.
I think what's coming more of a concern is how you actually form that connection and that fulfillment. So I can give you examples. We look at people, let's say, in Japan who are falling in love with these humanoids or with these chatbots, for example. They still feel isolated. They don't have that fulfillment that love should come about with, the connection at least that Hamid was talking about. In some African countries where AI hasn't necessarily been adopted that much, where you're not having to depend on a humanoid, you get to see that the essence of love and how people connect still exists and is still more meaningful.
Unfortunately, because of the world that we're living in, our love to materialistic objects is a lot higher than family. And this is why we have an unproductive society. This is why our families are not connected. This is why the values of love have completely changed and the identity of love have completely changed. And I feel like the most important thing about love is just receiving the satisfaction at the end of the day.
And I would like to push back on your point that you said the most important thing about love is that we just feel that satisfaction. I think that the more important thing about love is sacrifice. The more important thing about love is creating a bond with another human being. The more important thing about love is, for example, creating a household within a married couple. The more important thing about love is the feeling of duty towards one another within a society.
I have a question. Don't you think that me making a sacrifice of not being close to my parents or my family for the sake of being a CEO of a company is not considered a sacrifice that I can love and be obsessed with and work for to actually reach it? This is what is happening in today's world.
I think anybody who is in love with something that cannot love them back by nature is inherently unwell.
Hamid and I disagreed in different layers, right? Like Hamid was bringing that there is the hierarchy of Dr. Sharif and he was agreeing with it and he was supporting it. And I believe that this is a decent hierarchy that you can follow as a human being for you to be able to develop good social interactions and relationships with whoever is around you. Completely fine, completely justified. But the problem is within our society nowadays, when I have a struggling economy and I'm a person, I honestly do not think I will go with the idea of after God, I will go with communities and morals. No, after God straight away, I'll be going into money, prosperity, success, and then I might go into morals, values, family, and stability later on, because we are in a very materialistic world that we need to keep up with the competition. And if we don't, it's gonna be very, very hard for us to even reach the idea of family.
I guess if he wants, if he wants that type of life, I guess, go ahead. I don't have any complaints.
Before, it was a lot easier for you to go from God to morals to family because there wasn't this huge stress on the financial aspect.
Interestingly, there was that Somali-British poet, Warsan Shire. She wrote this beautiful poem. And at the time, at the height of the refugee crisis, when so many boats were crossing the Mediterranean and were sinking, she had that one line, nobody puts their children in the boat unless the water is safer than the land. People developed a lot of empathy as a result of that, and they got to see sort of the parental-child relationship. Yeah, of course, they don't want their kids to die. They want a better future for their kids. So to the point of what are the things that unite us in terms of poetry, in terms of culture, that break through these barriers and allow us to see each other as human beings who are flawed and fumbling, but also trying to love?
I think humanity, grief, and like the suffering of humanity, that's what I think like tied me to my humanitarian side and the refugee work that I've been working on. Like that's what made the connection, because why am I sitting here completely safe but I know millions are dying and I think the helplessness of being in this world, of being in this point in my life, that's what makes me and so many other people like me help.
I think that there is a lot of love for people who are vulnerable, but I also think that there's a lot of hate, rather, against vulnerable people. So you look at the rise of the far right in Europe, for example. But that hate also stems from love, particularly the love of country. Yeah. Love is very exclusive, right? You can only love one thing, and when we reject others, there's a certain kind of violence to that.
I completely
right? So
agree.
how do we temper that love for country in order to express our love for other people?
I want to push back a little bit on the fact that you can't love everyone. I think that's absolutely a fundamental mischaracterization. You absolutely can. Like, okay, yes, you're not...
If someone comes and attacks your family and you love your family, what are you gonna do? Just like shoot them with hearts because you love everyone?
I don't necessarily have a specific example for what I see love as, but I see it all around me. I see it every day when we choose not to punch the other person because we disagree with them so vehemently, right? I see it every day when a mother wakes up and makes breakfast for her kids. I see it every day when a father goes to work at his hellish job. I see it every day when someone buries their anger to give to others. I see it when someone celebrates life openly and joyfully. I see it when someone forgives someone. I see it all around us, right? Like, society does not work without love. And I think especially that we truly love when we are able to relate to others.
Dr. Sharif spoke about, hub and ishq and all these different ways.
It was beautiful.
You guys come from different cultures and backgrounds. Just give me a bit of that variety.
So I would like
and who has the better vocabulary to cover the vastness and beauty of love?
In Arabic has so many words for so many things. Like, hayati means, my life. But I would say English because it's such a simple language. For you to communicate and express love, you have to have some skill in it.
Your answer is basically because English is stupid. Right? But anyway, diverse cultures here. Let's start with Spanish.
Yes, we have te amo, which is the biggest you can say. It's like, I really love you.
How about some Tagalog?
Mahal means love, but it also means expensive or prized.
Right.
So,
in Ndebele and Zulu, we've got like a lot of things. I mean, even it's connected to Ubuntu and this idea of like, I am because we are and so on in Southern Africa. Give us a flavor of Zimbabwe.
Okay, so if I'm to use Shona, because that's my native language, a simple phrase as Urichido chemoyo wangu. Like there's an aura that comes when you use those particular words.
Okay. Listen, I'm really looking forward to you all engaging with our panelists. So, are you ready to meet with them?
Yes.
Shall we go? Follow me, let's go. Okay, well, the students are here to meet with you all now. There's a lot to talk about. Something that did trigger a lot of discussion and debate, a lot of engagement, was the concept of unconditional love. That word unconditional did some like heavy lifting in there, and it brought out some passion, especially from you, Sundus.
You also yourself spoke about magic of love earlier. So I'm just wondering if you truly believe that it's just biology, because that kind of makes it look like a stimuli-response sort of relation, takes away the soul out of love. And you spoke about magic yourself. So can you expand on that?
Love is very, very complex. So the biological explanation of love is that set of neurochemistry. Is your genes having some sorts of influence on that? Is a set of activations in the brain and some psychologies and cognitions. So what's very interesting about human love, as opposed to love we might see in other animals, other species, is that we have this conscious element to it. But we have this massive cortex, which is the thinking, cognitive part of the brain. And that is actually capable of overriding the biology in certain circumstances. Love is very very complex, particularly if you're talking about human love, because we are able to reflect on our love. We are able to question our love. We are able to even have a whole relationship in our head without even involving anybody else. Your conscious mind is what makes human love so incredibly special.
So I felt really strongly about getting in there. I believe that love is conditional. It's very rare for it to be unconditional. I just think that that doesn't mean that there have to be like tiny conditions that make it still good, you know? There's a motivation that we're fulfilling. This is where I agreed with her on. But I wanted her to tell me if she really thought that that was it, like that's it. We just like there's a chemical and I'm just trying to suppress that motivation. I'm trying to get rid of that motivation and that's it. I don't believe that that's just that, you know, there's something more than biology.
I wanted to know, like, with regards to passion, for example, in romantic relationships, everyone knows, like, that passion is the part that, like, is the most fun, right? Like, so you, from a biological standpoint, do you believe that it's sustainable to maintain that passion throughout the relationship? Or do you think it's inevitable to fizzle out and die? Like, do you believe, like, it really can only last, like, a couple of years, like everyone says? Like, I'm recently married, etc. Like, I want to know, like, is it inevitable to die?
Timetable. Okay.
Why didn't you say that at the beginning?
or are there ways to maintain that passion throughout, like...
Is those articles you've read about, like, 2 years or whatever, they are statistical averages. Everybody is different. Ultimately, you do get to that companionate stage, partly because the neurochemistry that underpins the passionate bit is not sustainable for too long, yet we build tolerance towards it.
I don't agree with her perception that, like, oh, love is going to just die and you're going to become, like, friend. I don't really think that's the case. I'm a very passionate guy. I think this is in my genes, etc. But I have to wait and see if she's correct.
Regarding the hierarchy, I actually wanted to talk to Dr. Sharif regarding this. From an Islamic perspective, the hierarchy comes from God, and then it comes from morals, and then communities, family, and so on, right? But in our generation, it's become a lot more materialistic. So in some cases, yes, you might see God up there for some people, and then it's directly like money, stability, economic stability for guys specifically, and then it comes education, and then you reach family, and then you reach maybe stability in terms of building a family and having a wife, right? So I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of consideration of our generation, how do we deal with it? How do we stay in track? How do we actually show that there is a proper way of maintaining love? Because as I said earlier, like, the idea of the financial spectrum that we're working in, the idea of capitalism, makes it very difficult for us to focus on the moral aspects.
If you say, well, I'm concerned about getting a job and having a good career and so forth, right? That doesn't mean your love is misplaced. You're just talking about what are your priorities at a particular stage in your life, right? And I think that that's normal, especially as you're building yourself, that you're going to want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet so that you can go on and, you know, find a partner and then, you know, have children and so forth and found a family.
I've heard this quote which states that as for women and children, they're the only ones who are given like this unconditional love, but as for a man or a father figure, to be specific, it's dependent on how you can care and provide. So with regards to your book and how you're giving these distinctions to how a father who is loving is looked at in an African context and maybe in a Western context, what would you think about that particular statement in terms of men and needing to provide? And if a man cannot provide, then there's no love.
I personally would disagree with that vehemently, because actually what children ultimately need is, obviously they need safety, they need a certain amount of money, they need food on the table. Those are fundamentals, but personally that's a responsibility of either parent, and in many cultures that's the responsibility of either parent. It's nothing to do with being a father. The love between a father and their child is just as unconditional as that between a mother and a child. There are many myths surrounding fatherhood which are just that, they are myths.
I think from the Islamic paradigm we have a kind of strong example from the Prophet ﷺ, like, where it should be the case that your relationship with your mother is stronger, because, like, she did carry you for 9 months, she did go through the pains of childbirth, she did go through, how do I say, for example, even breastfeeding, etc. So I know that, like, us as Muslims, we understand that love is actually in a hierarchy, with God at the top, then the Prophet ﷺ, then your mother, and then your father, right? And for me, of course, me as a married man, I have my wife up there. Of course, to her, she's number one. But maybe to others, I'll have to say that, like, she is on the Islamic position.
I never experienced the love of a father or mother. I'm an orphan. So for me, it's a bit difficult trying to leverage what is, like, who are you closer to? But sometimes I don't really like approaching the topic this way, just because, yeah, your mother and father are important, but we also should look at other people that have roles in your life. And I feel like maybe didn't have a mother or father, but I feel like my friends were actually like a very huge foundation to who I am now. And whenever I tell people, hey, I was an orphan, they're like, oh, poor you, like, oh my God, your parents. And I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty happy right now. And I think I would have rather be with my friends than with a family that did not actually have virtues and values that I shared.
Wonder, Ayca, to the point of we discussed the modern world and all the tools that we have and all the realities that pervade. Has it become more difficult to be a loving person, a compassionate person, an empathetic person because of the modern world that we're living in?
If we just think about the love, the motivation behind love in the way that we organize our societies as the family at the foundational unit, for instance, we have now smaller families and less children. Why? Because children used to be contributing to the economy, they contribute to, during the agriculture societies, that they were part of the source of income. Now they become a source of cost. And children becoming a source of cost then impacted the role of fathers and mothers in terms of the expectations. So the gender roles have had to shift. So what I have seen is the expectations of women have changed, but men quite haven't, other than the fact that now I think you're more hearing the dads needs to be hands-on. It's always interesting, I have observed this when I would pick up my daughter from school, from daycare or doctor visits or, play dates and so on and so on. That's sort of like expected. But when a dad shows up, all the mothers like, oh, what a great dad.
Okay, so we've been talking about love in the here and in the now. I want to ask somebody from the younger generation, what kind of world are we leaving behind? And is it even our duty, especially us older folks, if you like, our duty to leave behind a more loving world, a more loving planet, more loving ideas, more peace, more love, however you want to define it, Sarah?
It is a duty that we have. It is a duty. We have to create a safer world for the future generation. Basically, we need no more wars. We need to protect the climate. We need to protect our resources, and we need to be more humane to each other. I believe in love for humanity. I think that's the highest level of love.
Love in and of itself and its fundamental core has not changed over the past millennia.
It did.
I think the technological advances and all of that you say are simply veils that are kind of like misguiding us or mischaracterizing us or trying to, like, we misunderstand now what love is. But in its true, rawest form, love is still the same. It is the same love of Shakespeare. It is the same love of Rumi. It is the same love of all the poets.
It hasn't changed. The feeling hasn't changed. This is the way we love because of our either traumas or habits or cultures or AI, communication, social media. The way we love or interact with love has changed. I don't think love has really changed. It is really that innate feeling.
If you see yourself as part of the humanity, then to preserve yourself, we need to contribute to preserving the humanity. And there is a huge connection between the theory of intelligence that is out there, that is pushed to us, and the theory of love that we have been discussing right now. And then the two are really interconnected. If we don't take ownership, if we don't recognize the special powers of love, then slowly we will lose our ability that makes us distinct from other forms of intelligence. That's our competitive advantage. That's our superpowers.
If everyone uses AI and they're using all these things to move forward with love and all these other things, if you don't use them, you're going to be left behind. But the idea of love itself will never change.
Let's be very honest here. Love will survive beyond us. Love will survive AI. Love will survive.
So you feel we see enough love in the world right now?
I absolutely do.
Love will survive. I agree with you in one sense. The question is, will we as a species survive in a healthy, psychologically healthy, physical healthy way, the way we are going? And that is a question, I think. Yeah. Love sits at the heart of your humanity, but it also just sits at the heart of your survival.
Don't you think that some forms of love are actually inherently unhealthy?
Love has a dark side. We crave love so much as humans, okay, because it's innate to who we are. That can then be used to manipulate and exploit. So as with all adaptations, love is an adaptation, it has a dark side, there is a negative side to it. Right. And therefore you can find love being used against you.
Thankfully, you've all been very respectful and loving amongst each other. We've heard some bold claims, hard truths, and deeply personal reflections from everybody, and now conversation has come full circle. Speakers, you have shared your vision, listened to each other, heard your ideas echoed, questioned, and reimagined by the next generation flanking you. Now, we're gonna close this chapter, and I'm gonna start with you, Anna. What has been your takeaway from this experience with the students and recent graduates? Any insights?
I'm interested to understand sort of some of the comments over here about how you're redefining love in terms of what your goals are in life, but also what's fascinating for me and what underpins all my work on love is how many different opinions there are about love. I just think the wonderful thing about love is everybody's experience is individual.
Wonderful. Ayca, Ariyoruk, what have you extracted from this experience with the students?
First of all, I mean, I think this was a very lively exchange. It gave me hope that young people are really thinking deep about love and questioning everything, and from the point of view of AI, that critical thinking is something that we might slowly, gradually lose if we delegate too much. But I think if I said one thing throughout, and I probably said it too much about love being a form of intelligence, and I said that because intelligence is being able to solve problems, and love solves problems. It is one of those really critical moments where we are defining intelligence, and however we defined is going to scale and stay with us. That's something that I'm hoping the young generation will approach it with a mind to do something about it.
Okay, I hope they're listening. Sharif, El-Tobgui, tie us up in a nice heart-shaped bow here. Like one of those Valentine's Day ones.
Very happy to meet the students and very impressed, with the level of engagement, the level of, analysis. It's been great to hear your perspectives, also to be challenged by them. I do agree with, what was your name?
Mudassir.
Mudassir, what you were saying, I mean, I also agree that love in essence doesn't change, It is the same love today that Rumi spoke about and that people even, back in the times of the Greek tragedy spoke about. Of course, there is, cultural, colorations of it, right? But at its core, love is the same. And it will always be the same. We live in a kind of like a multicultural and multi-confessional and pluralistic world. So we need to find a language to speak about these things, even across, I think, cultural and religious, divides or bridges or so forth.
I felt that Dr. Sharif was giving the answers I wanted to give when I couldn't give them, right? To the questions of the fellow students, right? I thought that we were really aligned with our perspective on love and the fact that love really to be full has to be spiritual, right? I think that it is all well and good to say all love is equal, everyone can love in their own way. But at the end of the day, we are Muslims. And at the end of the day, we believe that there is a true love and there is a higher love that you cannot reach without making your love spiritual, without making your love for the sake of God, right?
Dr. Anna Machin, she was talking this time and I was like, wow, this is the whole 180, because now I somehow agree with everything that she's saying. In the beginning, I didn't agree with anything. And that's, I think, a very good thing, I guess. I take it as a good thing that I was able to just completely change my opinion based on everything I heard. And
people even regarding the hierarchy that Dr. Sharif brought and Hamad brought, yes, I completely honestly agree with them. Like, they are amazing, and this is something that we should actually aspire to work on. But it's just simply not realistic in today's world, and this is why I was challenging this concept of the hierarchy. There are people that are unfortunately struggling with God in the first place, which is something that is not supposed within our religion, something that you're not supposed to be even like moving or altering or even having like doubts of. It should be the highest priority.
I think all of us, we came to a conclusion that love is something deeply important. It is a moving force for all people from the beginning of time. And it is something that all of us, we can get a little bit more of in our lives, right?
I'm glad we had this conversation. And if any of you felt that we didn't cover particular topics the way you would have liked to, or you didn't get enough time, blame me. The fault is all mine. I apologize. I've been trying to keep it all together, but I really appreciate the discussion that we've had here. It's been fascinating. But as they say, if you love something, you need to
let it go.
Let it go. We have to let it go now. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Doha Debates. Thank you to our speakers, our students, and all of you for watching and listening. We've explored bold ideas, challenged all those assumptions as we aim to all the time, and we've opened some space for understanding, I hope, with respect and curiosity at the center. Now, the conversation does not end here. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Please share your thoughts, your questions, and your perspectives. We are listening. Thank you.